Amazon's entry into the satellite broadband market with Project Kuiper, now known as Amazon Leo, represents a significant expansion in the space internet industry. The hyperscaler and e-commerce giant has committed substantial resources, investing over $10 billion to plan a constellation of more than 3,200 low Earth orbit satellites. By April 2025, the company had launched over 150 production satellites and initiated an enterprise preview program allowing select business customers to test the service ahead of broader commercial rollout planned for 2026. First announced in 2019, the project received approval from the Federal Communications Commission in July 2020. This license requires Amazon to deploy 50% of its constellation by mid-2026 and complete the full fleet by 2029. The first two prototype satellites were launched in October 2023, with initial customer service originally expected by the end of 2024. However, this timeline was missed due to challenges with satellite manufacturing and rocket readiness. To meet its ambitious deployment schedule, Amazon could not wait for its New Glenn rockets, which were under development by its subsidiary Blue Origin. Instead, the company secured an extensive portfolio of 83 launch contracts across 4 different providers, 38 launches on United Launch Alliance's Vulcan Centaur, 9 on its Atlas V rockets, 18 on Arianespace Ariane 6, and 3 flights on SpaceX's Falcon 9. This multi-provider strategy enabled the first operational satellite launch in April 2025. Following launch, the satellites initially reached a parking orbit in an altitude of 450 kilometers. From there, they began a gradual ascent over several weeks to reach their final operational orbit at 630 kilometers. Amazon's Leo is similar to SpaceX's Starlink, aiming to provide global low-latency internet. However, its strategy diverges significantly in scale and market approach. Amazon is deploying a smaller, high-performance constellation of over 3,200 satellites compared to Starlink's tens of thousands, and is prioritizing the enterprise-first model over mass-market consumer sales. The company is initially focusing on high-value business, government, and telecommunications partners. Early agreements include providing in-flight Wi-Fi for JetBlue starting in 2027, partnering with defense contractor L3Harris, and supporting national operators like Australia's NBN Co. Technically, the systems share foundations but have key distinctions. Kuiper satellites will operate at higher orbital altitudes 590, 610, and 630 kilometers compared to Starlink satellites at 550 kilometers. The constellation is designed to cover the Earth within 56 degrees north and south, encompassing most of the world's populated areas. A major differentiator is Amazon Leo's deep integration with Amazon Web Services. The service will connect directly to Amazon data centers globally, enabling businesses to move data securely from remote locations to the cloud without traversing the public internet. This creates a powerful, seamless value proposition for organizations already embedded in the Amazon ecosystem. Amazon's Leo system is built on 3 integrated components: a network of satellites, customer terminals, and a ground infrastructure. Its ground segment uses gateway antennas to transmit data to and from the satellites, supported by a global fiber optic network that connects to the internet and cloud services. For the user, Amazon offers a range of terminals, from the ultra-compact model providing up to 100 megabits per second to a standard version delivering 400 megabits per second, and a high-performance terminal for enterprise and government use capable of 1 gigabit per second. The competition between SpaceX's Starlink and Amazon's Leo is a masterclass in systems engineering, where a single foundational choice, orbital altitude, cascades into every aspect of design, from satellite lifespan to the financial model. SpaceX has made an aggressive bet for performance by placing its primary satellite shell at approximately 550 kilometers from the surface of the Earth. This very low placement is the key to its industry-leading low latency of less than 40 milliseconds, a threshold critical for real-time applications like competitive gaming, video conferencing, and drone control. However, hugging the atmosphere comes at a cost. Satellites at these altitudes experience significant atmospheric drag, which increases by about 25% during solar storms, accelerating orbital decay. Because of that, Starlink embraces the disposable satellite model. designing the satellite for 4 to 5 year lifespans, and rather relying on frequent low-cost launches enabled by its reusable rockets for consistent replenishment. This model also demands extreme vigilance in space traffic management, with the constellation executing over 50,000 collision avoidance maneuvers every 6 months. To serve tens of thousands of users simultaneously, the Starlink V2 mini satellites leverage a wide array of frequency bands, including the Ku, Ka, and the cutting-edge E and V bands. This expanded spectrum enables high-capacity connectivity, delivering speeds of approximately 220 megabits per second for residential customers and up to 1 gigabit per second for enterprise. In contrast, Amazon's LEO pursues a strategy of efficient endurance. By targeting an orbital band of between 590 to 630 kilometers, the approximately 80 kilometer altitude buffer reduces atmospheric drag by roughly 50%, which extends the satellite lifespan to about 7 years and drastically reduces the number of satellites needed for global coverage. This briefing room lowers long-term replacement costs and constellation management complexity. This trade-off is governed by the law of physics. The higher orbit introduces a 40% greater free space path loss for signals and slightly higher projected latency of 30 to 50 milliseconds. To compensate for that, Kuiper satellites are engineered with 20% larger phased array antennas and higher transmission power to achieve comparable signal strength to the Earth. To further aid performance, Amazon developed a custom-designed Prometheus chip, a multi-purpose processor that handles terabit per second data throughput and integrates communication, routing, and collision avoidance functions. Despite its advanced design, Amazon LEO is entering a market where Starlink is already firmly established. By the end of 2025, Starlink reported providing service to over 9 million subscribers across 99 countries, giving it a substantial head start in network deployment and customer acquisition. While both constellations aim to provide global internet connectivity, Amazon LEO must overcome Starlink's overwhelming first-mover advantage. SpaceX's revolutionary cost structure, geopolitical barriers, and the brutal economics of emerging markets, all without counting the Chinese competition that's also coming. The market is also saturated in the West. Over 90% of urban, suburban areas in the US and EU have fiber, 5G or cable broadband offering 1 gigabit per second speeds at $60 to $80 per month, undercutting satellite's value proposition. Amazon is acquiring Globalstar to take over its deal with Apple and snapping up its frequency licenses. This is an effort to get into the direct-to-cell service. Amazon will support the 2G level SOS services for Apple's devices provided by Globalstar's 25 LEO satellite and seek to broaden the service by providing D2C broadband internet services also. The current Globalstar service only offers 2G level of services including voice and text messages. Starlink already has about 650 latest generation direct-to-cell satellites in its constellation, providing 4G broadband services through its partner T-Mobile directly to phone. Amazon currently only has 200 of its 3,200 targeted satellites in orbit, but none of them offer D2C services, except for the new ones acquired through the Globalstar acquisition. According to many analysts, the size of the global space economy will eclipse 1.8 trillion by 2035, up from 630 billion in 2023. The industry's leader, SpaceX, is preparing to hold an IPO in 2026, which could raise up to 75 billion with a total capitalization of 1.7 trillion. In 2025, Starlink's revenue was about 18.5 billion, up from 13.1 billion a year earlier. Starlink already faces congestion-induced speed drops in some regions, giving Amazon LEO some hope of headroom. But that space won't last long as SpaceX continues to ramp up its number of satellites in orbit. Its recent capacity issues in cities like Lagos create openings, but Amazon lacks ground infrastructure to fill them quickly. The company is aiming for the enterprise internet market. It may also find a way to link its data center services to satellite internet to provide a new service using AI. Starlink also dominates maritime aviation contracts and has secured US military partnership in the Starshield program, creating entrenched relationships. With over 2 million Starlink users invested in hardware, Amazon will have to offer radical discounts to incentivize switches. risking a profitability-destroying price war. Unlike the Chinese and Russian competitors, Amazon Leo cannot count on a guaranteed home market. And like Starlink, it won't be allowed to operate in markets like Russia, China, Iran, or Belarus due to geopolitical restrictions and domestic alternatives. These markets represent 2.5 billion people, where Starlink also struggles, eliminating potential growth levers. But Amazon can fight for market share in countries in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, but it will face brutal price competition from the Chinese satellite companies. Most of the big underserved countries are BRICS countries, and their populations are more price sensitive because they have lower standards of living. For example, Nigeria and Ethiopia's GDP per capita is less than $2,000, thus they will choose the cheapest options. Competition will largely be conducted on price, and the Chinese will win because they have cheaper cost of input, cheaper supply chains, cheaper labor costs, and bigger economies of scale. The only doubt is as to when they can master the reusable rocket. Amazon's Leo satellite broadband network has been tapped to provide internet connectivity to customers in 7 South American countries under the terms of a newly announced deal with Vrio Corp, the parent company of DirecTV Latin America and Sky Brazil. Vrio plans to use Amazon network to serve residential customers in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Uruguay. The area takes about 383 million people, including tens of millions of people who still aren't connected to the internet, according to World Bank estimates. Amazon has made similar deals with Verizon in the US, Vodafone and Vodacom in Europe and Africa, and NTT and Sky Perfect JSAT in Japan. But adding a middleman to a customer-facing business does not help make more revenues. It will most likely just increase the cost of service. India will be an important market and may end up determining if Amazon survives. It is a big, fast-growing market with huge prospects and no Chinese competition. It will only have to fight Starlink, OneWeb, Russian Bureau 1440, and new Indian prospects like Reliance Jio. With more than 300 million unconnected people, India can be a market that saves Amazon Leo's project. In early 2026, Blue Origin announced a second satellite constellation called TerraWave. This constellation is distinct from consumer broadband networks like Starlink, as it is designed to be a dedicated space-based transport backbone for moving massive volumes of data between fixed points like data centers and government facilities. However, the system's ambition relies on several unproven technologies, including commercial QV band terminals and ultra-high capacity optical links, presenting significant execution hurdles. By 2030, Starlink will likely dominate consumer broadband, while Amazon Leo may thrive in AWS integrated enterprise applications. The primary guaranteed market is mobile connectivity for high-value transportation assets. For airplanes and cruise ships traversing oceans and remote regions, terrestrial networks offer no coverage. Satellite internet is the only solution for in-flight Wi-Fi and passenger connectivity at sea, representing a massive recurring revenue stream. Similarly, providing internet for rail travel, especially on long-distance routes through sparsely populated areas, enhances passenger experience and operational communications. The value proposition for these sectors is immense, as they can directly monetize the service by offering it to customers. Another core market is connecting remote locations. This includes remote oil fields and gas fields, mining operations, and scientific research stations where establishing fiber is logistically impossible. For these industries, reliable internet is not a luxury but an operational necessity for communication, data transfer, equipment monitoring, and worker safety. Providing connectivity to isolated villages, whether in Alaska, the Sahara, the Amazon, or island nations, also falls into this category. Perhaps the most socially vital use case is the lifeline during disasters and emergencies. When terrestrial infrastructure is destroyed by earthquakes, hurricanes, or floods, LEO satellite constellations can take over communications in hours. Terminals are portable and can be rapidly deployed by first responders to coordinate rescue efforts, establishing emergency communications for hospitals and allowing civilians to contact loved ones. A striking example occurred after the February 2023 earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, where Starlink terminals were used to restore connectivity for aid organizations when local networks were destroyed. The expansion of low Earth orbit satellite internet led by American companies like SpaceX's Starlink and Amazon's LEO is poised to have profound and multifaceted impact on the United States. Its primary promise lies in bridging the persistent digital divide, which as of 2025 leaves 7% of US population, approximately 24 million people, without access to fixed terrestrial broadband. For millions in rural, remote, and tribal communities where laying fiber optic cable is economically unviable, LEO constellations offer a reliable, high-speed alternative. The positive socio-economic effects are extensive. Economically, the LEO industry is becoming a significant economic pillar, creating thousands of high-tech jobs in manufacturing, launch operations, and network management. Major investments such as Amazon's $10 billion commitment to Project Kuiper in Washington and SpaceX's $56 million expansion in Texas stimulate local economies. By connecting previously isolated businesses, LEO Internet enables remote work, e-commerce, and access to global markets, boosting productivity and fostering entrepreneurship. In education, it provides students in underserved areas with the critical link for digital learning and resources, helping to close an achievement gap. For healthcare, LEO connectivity enables robust telehealth, allowing for specialist consultations and remote patient monitoring in regions lacking local medical facilities. Beyond bridging the basic digital divide, LEO connectivity will serve as a transformative backbone for innovation across the American economy. For enterprise and critical infrastructure, it will enable real-time management of remote assets. In transportation and mobility, the impact is sweeping. Airlines like JetBlue have partnered to provide free, high-performance in-flight Wi-Fi, revolutionizing passenger experience. Maritime and rail sectors will gain continuous connectivity for operations and services outside terrestrial networks. For the future of autonomy, LEO network offers the consistent nationwide coverage required for over-the-air updates to fleets of electric and autonomous vehicles, and will be crucial for the command and control networks of eVTOL air taxis. For government and national security, agencies will require uninterrupted, secure, and fast communication for operations everywhere. The technology also fuels the emerging tech ecosystem, providing the high bandwidth and low latency needed for distributed AI data processing and forming essential backhaul for 5G non-terrestrial networks that extend cellular coverage. The fundamental problem for satellite broadband demand in America and Europe is the extensive coverage of high-quality terrestrial infrastructure. Fiber optic and cable networks deliver faster and more reliable and often cheaper internet to the vast majority of urban and suburban populations. As a result, satellite services are relegated to a niche of last resort for the small percentage of rural households where running fiber is prohibitively expensive. Even this niche is under pressure. Data indicates that after an initial surge, Starlink subscriber growth in North America slowed significantly in 2024, with analysts noting that the low-hanging fruit of rural customers willing to pay a premium has largely been captured. For the average city or town dweller, paying more for a satellite dish when a cheaper, faster fiber line is available makes little economic sense. Given this limited addressable market, industry analysts widely question its capacity to support multiple mega constellations profitably. The consensus view is that the market may only have room for 2 large-scale commercial providers. The logic is grounded in the simple economics. The enormous capital expenditure required to build, launch, and maintain a constellation of thousands of satellites, estimated at the tens of billions of dollars, requires a massive customer base to achieve profitability. And splitting a niche market 3 or 4 ways makes it difficult for any operator to reach the necessary scale. Europe presents a challenging market for consumer satellite broadband due to its highly developed and dense terrestrial infrastructure. The continent is characterized by densely populated cities and towns where fiber optic networks and widespread 5G coverage are the norm. The European Union's own data shows that 94% of households are already online, primarily through these ground-based solutions, which offer higher speeds and lower latencies at competitive prices. For the vast majority of the urban and suburban Europeans, paying a premium for satellite internet offers no compelling advantage. Consequently, the addressable market on the mainland is largely confined to a very small percentage of the population in extremely remote rural areas, such as isolated mountain villages or farms where laying fiber is prohibitively expensive. This niche is too limited to support purely commercial mega constellations, which is the key reason why Europe's sovereign Iris Square project is primarily government-backed and focused on strategic security needs rather than mass consumer appeal. The business case for a commercial operator to compete intensely for this small, scattered customer base against subsidized terrestrial expansion projects is weak. In contrast, a nation like Indonesia is a natural and potentially lucrative market for satellite broadband due to its unique geography. As the world's largest archipelago, it consists of about 17,000 islands scattered across a vast maritime territory. This geography makes universal terrestrial connectivity a monumental, if not impossible, engineering and economic challenge. The thousands of remote islands and coastal communities lack basic 4G coverage, with estimates suggesting nearly 10,000 villages are still without reliable mobile internet. The demand in Indonesia is not limited to a niche few, but encompasses a massive underserved population for whom satellite provides the first realistic path to high-speed internet, enabling digital education, telemedicine, and economic participation. For these communities, satellite is not just an alternative, it's the only viable first-mile infrastructure. The economic argument is powerful. Deploying a single satellite dish to an island village is exponentially cheaper and faster than attempting to lay undersea fiber cables or build microwave towers across the ocean. Industry analysis confirms that in such archipelagic regions, satellite broadband can be up to 80% cheaper than extending terrestrial networks to the most remote locations. This creates a sizable market that can genuinely support commercial satellite operators. But there is still a problem. In markets like Indonesia, American constellations will face competition from Chinese constellations like Guowang and Qianfan.